Now, several problems now. First of all, I have to see my glasses off. Can you hear me? So, I don't know if you can hear me. And I don't know if you can see me. I can see. I'm all framed there. All beautiful. It's me. It's Galen. Galen's got Parkinson's. I'm trying my first ever. Well, no, it's not. It's my third ever live stream. But it's the first one where I've actually done it for a program. So it's called Friday Night Barely Live. Because I am. Let's face it. I have a plan. I'm going to do 30 minutes tonight. But once I've ironed out all the wrinkles, I'm going to do it every Friday from 8 till 9. And hopefully, over time, word will get around and you'll know to go out and avoid it. Because to be honest, I keep banging on my YouTube thing about 50 years ago when I was a teenager. Which is what I try and base the whole live streaming around. So, 50 years ago, I wouldn't have been even watching this, partly because it hadn't been invented, but because I've been out having larks. So if you're in and you're watching this, maybe you should have a look at yourself. Or perhaps it depends how old you are or what time zone you're in. Because, I mean, I understand on the internet, people can be there from all over the world. What a thought. I'm being ignored by several billion people. That's a thought, isn't it? If you got self-esteem issues and you think, no, I need to be noticed, and then you go here and you realise you're actually so insignificant it don't matter. You might as well be one star in the heavens. I read somewhere there's 2 million YouTube things go out every day. And they're all a lot better than mine. They're all a lot more relevant than mine. So, really, what can I tell you? I brought Teddy because he gives me a bit of moral support. And, to be honest, he feels a bit left out. He did have a date. Well, he didn't actually. He had some figs. He did have a date. That's probably about the level of humour you're going to get. If you're expecting any sort of witty repartee, you're unlikely to be getting it here. You're going to have to make up your own. So, yeah. What's that? I don't know. That's one of them upside down. What's that? I don't know, but here comes another one. So my plan is every week to have set features. So the first half hour is sort of a practice for all of us. So I've got ideas, which is just swell, isn't it, really? So tonight I'm going to do sort of little 5-minute slots, and happily, YouTube gods have put a little clock up there for me, so I know what time it is and I know where I'm at. And I'm going to do this. This is it says on the sheet, funny, engaging, relevant introduction. I haven't done any of them, have I? Oh, well, there's less than a minute left of this segment. And then I've got another segment, funnily enough, which is going to follow the first one. And then I'm going to have another segment, and so on and so forth. And today, they're in little 5-minute bits, because I thought that's all we could all cope with. Yeah, so really, that's going to be the format. And then if in the future anybody ever contributes, because I think you can contribute in retrospect, can't you? You might not be watching it now live. You might be fast asleep now. You might be in some place where it's dark. Oh, you don't work. Oh, no. sorry, I'm retired. I couldn't care less. You can contribute, send me messages or comment. That'd be nice. Look at me. I don't need insults. And to be honest, I think as a fantasy wargamer, if somebody said, "Oh, you've got a troll," I'd think, "Oh, fantastic! Put it in my wargames box with all my other trolls." So yeah, so that's sort of an introduction, really. Now, I'm going to have a thought about something that's happened over the past week. Next week it'll be what happens between now and next week, but today it isn't. Today is about something that happened 3 weeks ago, but it's relevant to me and my wargaming and my constant harping back 50 years to 1975 when I try and reset my wargaming, having learned I've got Parkinson's disease, and I decided I was going to be happy. And the time I was probably happiest as a youngster was 18 years old, before I went to college, uni, getting girlfriends and wargaming and learning all new things. Everything was fun. So that's where I'm sort of set myself. Now, one of the big influences on me from 1973, and I know that because I was on a school trip and I was going to see Godspell on a coach. And they played on the coach, had a radio, and they played a band, the Strobes, played a track they had in the charts called Lay Down. And I've loved the Strobes ever since. Now, about 3 weeks ago, Dave Cousins, the lead singer of the Strobes, died. And he meant a lot to me, and I was sad. Having said that, he was knocking on a bit. It's not like, it wasn't a tragedy. It wasn't Buddy Holly level of tragedy. It was knocking on a bit. But you still miss some, don't you? And in the background, I dug out my favourite Strobes album, which I played in 1975. It's when I was at my first year at college. This never came off the turntable. It was on all the time. And my copy got all bashed, beat up. And when I was a headmaster, kids under teacher, kids who would leave and go to secondary school would do all sorts of kind things for you, like not let your ties down or throw paint at you, or sometimes they'd get you stuff. And there were two lovely girls whose dad had sort of an antique record shop, and just out of the blue, they turned up with a copy of this album, which is called Ghosts, and the Strobes Ghosts. And the track that's on now, Lemon Pie, is I kept playing it over and over again. I had a copy of this, and a mate of mine who I shared a room with at college, he had a copy. And because I kept just pick the needle up and go back to the start of Lemon Pie over and over again like that. And he was downstairs in the dining room doing some homework stuff, prep for a lecture. And he sent one of his underlings up, and he said, tell him to stop scratching my record. I said, it's not mine. So we had to take both copies down, prove it. That's yours, that's mine. I have got one. They made more than one because he would get dead grumpy. So I'm playing this in honour of Dave, who I met. I met him in Burnley after a concert, and my family and I all stayed behind because I made them like the Strobes as well. And we all stayed, and the band were there. And there were only us and them in the bar. And we stayed till quite late talking, and they gave me a poster from the tour they were on, and they all signed it. And we got to talk. It was really, really nice, and they were lovely. I actually talked to Dave Lambert more than I talked to Dave Cousins. And funnily enough, the keyboard player at that gig, because the keyboard player I was expecting was a chap called Blue Weaver, his wife was ill, and he was replaced by somebody. Oh man, I've forgotten. Adam Wakeman, Rick Wakeman's son, because Rick Wakeman was in the original Strobes. I'm in a band now called Witchwood, and the lead guitarist in my band went to school with Adam Wakeman. So it was like a full circle, as opposed to that, which is a vicious circle. So yeah, so this is a tribute today. If you don't know the Strobes, have a listen. If you don't know the Strobes, or you know the Strobes but you didn't know Dave had passed on, have a listen. If you like the Strobes, give us a thumbs up. Thanks, guys. You've accompanied many of my war games, which is lovely, much appreciated. So that's like my sort of thought for the week, but it's several weeks. It's not just that. Now, my next segment is going to be a feature, and I'm going to talk now about how wargaming started for me. I'd always played with soldiers. That's what most of us do, don't we? But a lot of us grow out of it. I never did. So I'd always played with soldiers. And I think my dad got fed up with me and my brother arguing with each other all the time. So he, 1972, took us to the YMCA in Doncaster, where there was a war games club. I don't know how he found out about it. I wasn't really expecting. In fact, my brother went before I did. He went the week before me because I wasn't sure. And then they said, "Oh no, you've got to come. It's dead interesting." So I went, and these chaps were doing. I guess sort of dates it, doesn't it really? But 1972, but they were still doing the Arab-Israeli war, like the Sinai and 6-Day War and all that, at 300th scale, which I had no idea about that. And some of the other guys, as you walk around, they were playing Napoleonics. And an old fella, I say old, I bet he was younger than me looking back. But he seemed old to me at the time. I was 15. And he said to me, "We all do Napoleonics here, Hinchcliffe," who I'd never heard of. And he said, "If you've got a stamp corner, Doncaster, they sell them." I was, "Oh, that's good." And there were, I think, 25 pence each, because I could get 4 from my pocket money, which was about £1. I can't prove that. I'm sure somebody could make a comment. But he said, "Don't get French or British." He said, "Everybody's got them." He said, "If you want to get involved in the big club weekend monthly games, you want to get something that nobody else has got. So get Prussians." I didn't know what Prussians were really. But my mate and I had been to see the Waterloo film, Rod Steiger, Christopher Plummer. And we went like 7 times in a row. Because in them days, when a film went on the pictures, it gone. It didn't come back on the telly for about 7 years. And there were no videos and DVDs and Netflix. That were it. Vanished. So we went loads. So I knew about the Napoleonic War. And we liked it. So I started doing that. And I got Prussians. I used to get 4 a week with my pocket money. And then I'd paint them for the following week. And gradually, I ended up with about 30 infantry and an officer and a standard bearer and a drummer. And a few cavalry and a gun and a crew. That was my lot. That's what I had. Then one day, I went into War Games Club. And my little brother, well, not my little brother, my littlest brother at the time, his teacher was reading him The Hobbit at primary school. I was at secondary school. And I'd read it because it sounded dead interesting from what he told me. And I went in the War Games Club, and these lads had big Brit. Do you remember the big Britain's trees? And you had to stick all the leaves on. They were huge. They were great. I love them. Mate of mine's got some. I'm going to blag them off with them one day. So he had a load of them, about half a dozen of them on a green cloth. And they had elves, goblins, and hobbits. And I went, "The Hobbit!" And this student lad, this sort of 19-year-old, looked at me with disdain and said, "It's Lord of the Rings." I'd never heard of Lord of the Rings. I didn't know what he was talking about. So I promptly rushed home and read Lord of the Rings. And changed my life. Started by minifix Lord of the Rings. Now I've got some YouTube videos coming up about Lord of the Rings soldiers, because I've just acquired lots, and I'm going to do a whole series using them. I've put a few shorts on of the Goblin Orc army with the Nazgul, so they're already on there now. But my wife, she doesn't contribute much to my wargaming, my missus, but I've sorted out all these soldiers. She looked at all these boxes of orcs and sword and sorcery elves from the 70s, really rare figures, beautiful, all painted, everything's fantastic. And she said, oh, them are interesting. I said, oh, thanks. She said, before you die, we'd better put a label in them all to say if they're worth anything. So what do you mean before I die? What's nothing worse, is there, than feeling really well and somebody going, oh no, you look right badly, you have to get back in bed. You're struggling, son. What a thing to say to me. What? I know. Teddy can't believe she said it, but hey, she did. Yeah. So that was that. So I'm going to do some of that. Now, I've got these to show you. Like show and tell. Now, I don't know, because I'm not very good on the internet. When I pick this up, it might look like looking in a mirror. So let's risk it. Oh, now I think that looks all right. This is my original Dungeons & Dragons Dungeon Master's Guide from 1979. The reason why I ended up with this, I didn't know about Dungeons & Dragons. I had no idea. But at uni, we played a game called Sorcerer's Cave. Still play it. You can still buy it. Great game. If you've not played it, play it. If you have played it, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And to get it, you have to get a Wargames magazine, and you have to find the right page, and then you have to get a coupon, and you have to tick and send it off. Because this came from America, this Gary Gygax thing. And in them days, that were what? That's outrageous. So I ticked my box, and I went to the post office to collect my parcel in 1979. And instead of getting the Sorcerer's Cave, I ticked the wrong box, and I got the Tomb of Horrors, which was Dungeons and Dragons. And I got well into Dungeons and Dragons. Well, you know, the first one I got, they weren't goblins and orcs. It was a card sheet inside, and there were ants. All the baddies were ants, and you poked them out the sheet, and you stuck them in little plastic stands. And you have, your usual cleric, warrior, an elf, dwarf, halfling. Great game, Tomb of Horrors. I played it for years. I played it till it fell apart and died. So that was my first game. And then I got this later on. I tended to be the dungeon master. I like being the dungeon master. I don't have a problem with being a dungeon master. But generally speaking, I wasn't a player. I was a dungeon master. But I bought this in, I'm going to have a look, can't remember. Well, yeah, 1979. Well, I got it quite soon, didn't I? I didn't realise. So I got that. And then I progressed. And I progressed to this. Now, I apologise for that being eaten. I had it out in my garage, and mice came in and nibbled it. And this is from, where's my glasses? Short pause while I adjust my accoutrements. I bet my eyes have been wandering all over, haven't they, this, because I haven't got my glasses on. 95. So this is, can't get them off now, she said. This is Warhammer Fantasy. And this is sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, but for Warhammer. And it's got everything. Same as Dungeons and Dragons. It's the Warhammer version. But it's, I've had that a long time. I've had it so long that the mouses have ate it. Yeah, I have. Yeah, so that's how I went on to start Dungeons and Dragons. And fantasy generally then became sort of the mainstay of my gaming. I did Napoleonic 25mm Hinchcliffe. And then I started to use miniature figurines from Southampton. And I loved them. I absolutely loved them. In fact, I've recently got rid of all of my Citadel figures, and I have replaced them with original miniature figurines figures, which is what my next series of videos are going to be about on YouTube. Using them for games now and things, letting you see what they look like. So that should be exciting. It's exciting for me. Might not be right exciting for you. Um, so yeah, so I was like 50-50. And on my own, I would play fantasy games. And when I was playing at clubs, it would be Napoleonic. And that was true at college. We had a Napoleonic War Games Club. And then when I went to Oldham War Games Club, and they did 15 mil Napoleonic. I've never seen 15 mil, so that was new. So I got rid of all my 25 mil Hinchcliffe, and I got 15 mil Hinchcliffe. Because Hinchcliffe was really close to where I lived. I lived in Oldham, and Hinchcliffe was at, I think it was at Holmfirth, wasn't it, up in the Pennines? And we struggled. It's like a house, just a house, and you went in, and there was a table. And a lady would ask you what you wanted. She'd fill in a form. And then she'd run upstairs and come down with all your men in a bag. Off you go. Yeah, so I did that. Then I sort of drifted out. I had a little spell of dabbling with Essex Finnegan's Colonial. That was about the time my kids were born. So I'd be like 85 to 90. I did the Colonial stuff. And then in the 90s, I got involved with guys in Burnley and Cone and Nelson, and they did fantasy. So I got back into fantasy. They did proper Citadel. They weren't messing about, and we ended up doing that. And I like squats, the little dwarf dudes. Still got them. If you go back through my YouTube things, you'll see them. They still come out. They're a crew in 5 parsecs, and they play in games like Stargrave, and even Core Space. They appear. So they're still around. So I like them. I love them. So I did that quite a bit. And then I sort of moved and came down south. And I went to a War Games Club. Now, I didn't know what to let myself in for. It was a War Games Club that seemed to be saying it was for Games Workshop. I didn't care. I had Games Workshop stuff. Still got Space Marines. Do you know my little Space Marines from the 80s are a fraction of the size of the new ones? They're ginormous. I don't know what's that all about. They look silly in the same game, but I had them. But I had a Warhammer and I had a 40k army, so I could play a Necromunda, a Blood Bowl. I had all that. And I went, and there were historic gamers there. They were playing muskets and tomahawks. I'd never played muskets and tomahawks, but I did have some indigenous peoples from that period. So I started using them. And then what I found was there was quite a lot of us, so about 12, 15 of us. And I would take it in turns. So every week, someone would put on a different game. So then I learned bolt action, rapid fire, Men Who Would Be Kings. I did Dragon Rampant, Lion Rampant, Pac-Man's Lament. So we ended up doing all these different games that I'd never known. I didn't know these games. And it was really exciting. And I'm still 10, 11 years later. That's what I do every Monday. So that's going to be another section of the following live program. It'll be, what am I going to do this week? What have you been doing this week? So if you're catching this up after today, and I hope you do, that'd be great. If there's something you want to say, make a comment. Go into the community section. Let me know what you're thinking. If you have something you want to talk about, or you want me to talk about, so you can make fun of me and disagree, let me know. That'd be nice. So yeah. So that's pretty much the format of that section. I'd like it to be led by you. I don't want to have to keep coming up with stuff. Not because I'm bone idle. I can talk for England. And I'm prepared to lie about things. As Blackadder would say, I consider myself one of England's finest liars. So that's pretty much what I'm going to do. Next week, we're going to run from 8 till 9. That's going to be then the normal format. I didn't this week. I was really worried that it was going to go technically very wrong. I've had to put a USB camera up because my laptop camera's awful. I couldn't get my headphones to work, and then I realised I had one wire that I thought, what's that wire go? And I looked for an appropriate hole. I shoved it in, and yeah, there we go. Now, what happened then was I saw a button. This is you've got to be careful with these things. I saw a little blue thing came up, and it said "Learn more." So I pressed it, like Alice in Wonderland, eating things and that, and everything went off. And I don't know where you've gone now. And then it took me ages with me dodgy eyes and no glasses and my wobbly hand on my little baby mouse because I can't use this thing. It took me ages to see a live streaming YouTube. Get back to where you were. That'll teach me. Do not press random buttons. So I thought we could talk about books you've read, films you've watched, games you're playing, periods you like, rules you want to do. What do you want to, what do you want to do? Imagine this. Well, don't imagine. This is our War Games Club. And it's very much led by me, and I don't want it to be. I want it to be led by us. When I go to our War Games Club on a Monday night, I'm not like the centre of attention. I'm not the principal boy. Sometimes I act like I am, but I'm not. I'm one of a group. I'm going to thank the people who are subscribing here because I know I haven't got a lot. It's 50. I've got 50. Here we are, I've said it. I know some people have got thousands, millions, but I don't care about them. I don't want numbers. I'm not trying to get monetized. It's just nice to know that 50 of you have taken the trouble to press subscribe. It's interesting because I know I've got like 1.6k views in the last month. Now, they're all unique views according to my analytics, so they're clearly not pressing subscribe or like. I don't know, they must think, oh my word, what a mess that is. I probably should go with the majority of opinion. But I love doing it. I started doing this when I was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I was working at the desk, and I thought, I'm really enjoying my gaming. After the initial shock of thinking I couldn't paint or do anything. Maybe there's other people and they've got hobbies and they're war gamers even, and they've got problems. So maybe if I publicise what I do, I might encourage other people to join me, have a laugh at me. I don't mind. So if you know people like that, tell them to come and say hi. Don't anybody ever be worried about coming here. I want you to be safe. I want it to be a great environment. I want it to be our club. So let's meet again. We'll meet again. I promise not to sing very often. And hopefully, over the months, we'll develop rapport, and a couple of you can find time to come and say hello. This might be a really bad time to do it. 9 till 8. I can't quite work out how that sort of links to the rest of the world. But I think most of my audience, looking at the analytics again, are in the UK. So maybe all watching Coronation Street. So I'm coming up to the 30 minutes, which is what I said I was going to do. So I'm looking forward to meeting you later on. I'm looking forward to having people notice what we're doing and finding us. That's always exciting. And over time, we can see if we might grow into a little group who meet for tea and sympathy and cry on each other's shoulders, but bound by the love and comradeship of wargaming. How does that sound? Sounds all right to me. So I'm going to end in that traditional way that Napoleon always used. Get our chuck!